Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's talk is going to be about how to stay secure from the internet. We all know that internet is the latest technology nowadays, and everybody is 100% fully dependent on internet right now. Businesses and families and users are all dependent 100%. So since it is a technology, so it has got pros and cons, and there are some errors conducted by users, and there are some dangers from using the internet, and there are of course some fixes to those threats that are emerging from using the internet. So we will be talking in this seminar about how to stay safe by highlighting the need for security and how to secure our personal devices and corporate devices, as well as how to use the internet securely. Now, first of all, we will be discussing the needs for security, and compliance to the cybersecurity requirements has to be identified. And also, we need to be able to recognize the biggest cybersecurity threat, which is social engineering. Compliance and requirements on how to use the internet or how to use the cyberspace has to be highlighted, and those requirements are actually documented in rules and regulations and company practices, and they are actually imposed by either organizations and governments. So requirements are often updated after a certain cybersecurity breach. And as an example of those requirements, like password length and password complexity, and some of those requirements are highlighted in laws and regulations by governments and by regulatory bodies like HIPAA, like ISO, like PCI DSS. So those requirements need to be documented, and usually they are documented in the form of something called a security policy, which means that we must follow those policies and those requirements in those policies. In organizations, those policies are documented in something called employee handbook, or they may be in something called an acceptable use policy guide, or they may be dictated by legal departments or the IT department or HR, and sometimes they are mentioned clearly in the company website. Also, industry regulations, they try to govern those requirements by highlighting the regulations and by trying to making sure that corporates comply with those requirements. We mentioned earlier that the biggest cybersecurity threat right now is social engineering, and social engineering is defined as tricking users to disclose confidential information, and it has actually many different forms where this tricking and trickery and deceit can be conducted based on mobile phones, so we call it mobile phone social engineering attack, and also it can be conducted using the computer, so we call it computer-based social engineering attack, or it could be by direct human interaction, and we call it a human-based social engineering attack. Now, phishing is one of those biggest cybersecurity threat, where a user usually receives an email with certain scenario that tries to trick the user into clicking onto a phishing link, and once the user clicks into this phishing link, a form will pop up, and hackers, they try to extract and collect information from the user by tricking the user to type in his username and password plus some other information, and in this case hackers, they got and collected the victim's username and password. Also, senior management and executives can be a target of the social engineering attack and the phishing emails, as well as something called phishing, which stands for voice phishing, where a social engineer or a hacker tries to call the victim directly over the phone, and they try to trick him into do something and change the configuration on the user machine in order to gain privileged access onto the victim's machine. Tailgating is also used, shoulder surfing are also used, impersonation are also very common nowadays, where somebody is using somebody else's username and password and personal information to log on to websites or to use this information for their own benefits. Some of the guidelines for mitigating social engineering attacks. First of all, we should start by understanding our surroundings, because some of those hackers are all around us, so they may watch us while we type in our username and passwords, and they collect it and use it for their own benefit. So we should understand also the importance for our credentials, which are the username and the passwords which we use to log on to e-banking, for example, or to our social media accounts and so on. So we have to be careful also before we install a software, because some of those softwares may be infected with viruses. So once we install an untrusted software from an untrusted website, so we may be become victims of software that is infected. Trojan may infect our machine. Trojans may run in the background and they try to collect our information, probably copy our confidential documents, family pictures and photos and so on. So this is very important to be aware of where from we should download our software, because it may be Trojanized easily. Also, we should be very cautious with the data and the resource disposal, which means once we no more need the information, we shouldn't dispose it in the in the trash right away. We should take care of it, and we should dispose it securely by shredding the information or by doing some sort of degaussing or some sort of wiping to the information that is stored in our devices, like mobile devices, tabs, and personal devices as well. If we are not sure, we should also get help from others, like asking questions and try to get help from those who are experienced in this domain. Okay, now we will talk about how to secure our devices, whether they are mobile devices, personal devices, or corporate devices. First of all, physical security is very important. Okay, so securing the device, don't leave your device unattended, because it may be lost or stolen easily. And once it is stolen, then definitely your data, your personal data, your documents, sensitive documents will be lost forever and will be disclosed as well, which means they may be shared with competitors, they may be shared with other hackers, and there will be a negative impact on the owner. So make sure that you don't leave the device unattended and keep it with you all the time. Also, don't leave your mobile devices and personal devices in the car or in vehicles, because this will attract hackers to break into the vehicle and steal your personal devices like laptops and tabs and mobile phones. Also, passwords are very important to secure the personal devices. So we should use a very complex password and very strong password, and also passlock keys. And if you have some sensitive documents on the phone or stored on the phone, it should be encrypted with a password if possible, so we can easily get some apps from the internet that will set a password on a file. And Microsoft Office can also do and can set and encrypt a password on a document. The second issue with mobile devices is basically malware or malicious software like viruses, Trojans. I'm sure all of us have heard about the last June WannaCry attack. It's basically called a ransomware. It's a malicious software that encrypts our data and files, and then hackers, they will ask for a ransom, and if we pay the ransom, then they will decrypt our files. Otherwise, we will lose our documents and files forever. So the best thing to secure those kind of files is to do
wireless devices are also very common right now, and everybody uses one or two wireless devices at home or at work or for personal use. Since those wireless devices, they use air as the communication medium, so our information is going to be transmitted in air in the form of electromagnetic waves. So anybody or any hacker with a simple cheap antenna can intercept this communication, and they can actually collect the information, and they can hack the wireless device, and they can hack your wireless personal devices as well as the corporate network devices. The communication is not encrypted, so it is very good advice to secure those wireless devices with encryption, like strong encryption, for example WPA2 encryption, and it is easily how to encrypt our personal devices can be googled easily, and a lot of videos in this domain are available. Devices are considered as a valuable assets to owners, and the connected information or the information stored in those devices are also considered as highly valuable. So we need to be mindful of the sensitivity of the data stored on those devices, and we should also be very cautious of social engineering attacks. For example, installing malicious software or applications, or receiving a phone call from a hacker. And also our devices and personal devices must not be given or borrowed to anybody, because if this person is unauthorized and he doesn't have access to the device, then they may hack it, and they may get access to our personal data in an unauthorized manner, and disclosure of personal files will happen, and this will affect our reputation. And we have to be also aware of the surroundings, because hackers, they may surround us, and they may look at us while we are typing our passwords, and we have to be very cautious not to type in the passwords and our credentials when somebody is around. Passwords, we said, are very important, and they are the open door to the key to the door, and they are considered the valuable asset to us. So we must change those passwords regularly, because passwords can be easily hacked, and tools are available in the internet as password crackers. So it will take hackers a couple of minutes, couple of days to crack a password. So by the time we change the password, hackers will not be able to hack into our accounts, and they will not get access to our data. So it is recommended that we change our PINs and passwords very often, and setting those passwords to something that is complex, that may include, let's say, uppercase, lowercase characters, numbers, as well as special characters, and this will make life harder on attackers if they try to crack our passwords. Passwords are also used for emails, as we all know, so our email passwords is very important, and we should take extra caution and extra cautious with dealing with and protecting our email passwords. And we should be mindful of the whereabouts and the accessibility of those devices, and the disposal of those media which contains valuable information. For example, shredding, if it is a paper-based document, we can shred the document. But if it is a mobile device, it is better that we restore this device to factory default before disposing it, because data will still be there even if we delete it manually. The operating system does delete the data, but physically it will still be there in the device, and hackers can collect those devices, and they can recover the data on the devices. So it is better that we dispose securely those devices by restoring the mobile devices to factory defaults. And also there are some tools available on the internet for wiping the device or clearing the data. We can also do some configuration with the mobile device and like iCloud account, or we can link it to our Google account, and in case the device is lost or stolen, we can go back to our Outlook or to our Outlook on the web, or the web Outlook, and we can delete and wipe the device if it is stolen or if it is lost. So the data will be deleted and the device will be restored to factory default. In this case, we can prevent whoever stole the device from recovering any data. It is good that we also report the lost and the stolen devices, and in this case we can have somebody or some legal departments to follow up, and they may identify and they may find out who stole those devices. Also maintaining an appropriate security for the credentials. Our credentials are the key to our door. So if we leave them, or if you write them on a sticky paper or a sticky note, somebody will collect them. So passwords should never be written on a sticky paper. Passwords should never be shared with anybody. Passwords should never be stored or saved on any file. We should remember those passwords, because they are easily cracked and they can be easily forgotten, and they can be easily shared as well with others. So we have to deal with the passwords securely, and we should be vigilant against social engineering attempts, and watching us typing our credentials must be prohibited, and setting and resetting our passwords very often is also one of the advices. And we should also be mindful of the presence of strangers in front of our mobile devices, and we should give also the most sensitive resources the most complex passwords, and we must treat our email account as the most sensitive resource. Reporting is very important. So if we are working in a company and we detected an attack or some kind of a breach, so it is better that we report it to our security manager or to our IT help desk or whoever is responsible about those attacks. Information and data are highly valuable right now, and all businesses depend on the information, and we cannot do business without information right now. So information is becoming like air to us, and since it is valuable, hackers and unauthorized users now targeting this information, this valuable information. So it is very important that we keep this information secure, and especially the information stored in servers and mobile devices and the other hardware devices. It is better that we also back up our personal data by copying the data and storing the data onto some other media in case the device is lost or stolen, or in case the device got encrypted by some form of malware. We can always go back to the backup and restore the personal files from there. And it is recommended that we store the files in the most secure media directed by our IT department. And you may be expected to store files on a network share, for example, or a cloud-based storage, or a USB flash drive. But in both cases, in all cases, we have to follow the directions from IT departments or from the authorized personnel. We can also confer with the IT departments in case we have any special needs for securing our data and for using the secure backup solutions for our personal information. Don't share your password, don't share your personal and valuable information with others, and be mindful of making copies of the sensitive data. Treat data in your custody with carefulness and with security measures and controls, and it is better that we follow the procedures for disposing the data stored on mobile devices and other personal devices. Malware is becoming very common right now, or it is called malicious software, or sometimes we call it al-baramij al-takhribiyya in Arabic, or al-baramij al-khabitha. Now, malware is infecting most of the machines, and it includes viruses, worms, trojans, and those malware now has the ability to corrupt systems and corrupt files, and also they can cause physical damage to devices. And nowadays, since all the MRI and the X-ray machines are networked with the hospital network, a malware can infect an MRI or an X-ray device, and it can cause the X-ray and the results of the X-ray to be fake, and this will end up prescribing the wrong medication to the patient. So it may also impact our health and safety, as well as the logical corruption to systems and files and the physical devices. So malware are becoming very dangerous right now, and malware makers are becoming very expert in this domain. So we have to be very cautious when using somebody else's USB flash drive or using somebody else's laptop. We should not connect our personal devices to foreign computers, and we shouldn't use any unauthorized USB flash drives into our own trusted laptops and devices, because they may be infected and they will end up infecting our personal files in this case. We may offer a benefit in return for the compromise, like sometimes we may get this offer from hackers, like we may receive a pop-up that say, click here to claim your present, or you have been the 1 millionth visitor to our website, so click here and click there, or you have received a free gift, so click here to claim your gift or your present. We shouldn't believe into all those advertisements and pop-ups, and we should be very careful, and we should be also very smart that nothing is for free, so nobody will offer you money for nothing. And this is now becoming very common also. Users started to receive emails saying, I have this amount and I wanted to share 20% of it with you, so please send me your bank details, your personal details, your mobile number, and so on. So don't believe into all those scenarios. They are all fake, and they try to steal our personal information. Also, we should read and understand the screens that pop up before taking any action on our computers and devices, and we should read carefully, and it is better to seek guidance before installing or upgrading a software also, unless we are very familiar with the software. And we should make sure the benefit of an installation and which outweighs the risk. So if the risk is higher than the installation or the tool, we shouldn't use it. Also, if we install a lot of applications on our devices, those applications, they will have some vulnerabilities, and this will increase the number of vulnerabilities, or in Arabic, ثغرات الأمنية. The number of those vulnerabilities will be increased, and those vulnerabilities will open many doors for hackers. So don't install any application that you don't need. Install the application, only the applications that you want, and uninstall those applications that are unneeded. Also, the applications must be downloaded from a trusted websites or a trusted Play Store. Be familiar with the basic operation of devices and the alerts that pop up. So if something suspicious on the device, be aware, don't click and don't download without understanding what is going on, and consider the trustworthiness of the source or of the website or the the file that you are trying to download. Wireless devices and wireless networks, they use air as a communication medium. So the information can propagate to longer distance. So hence it is very important that this information be encrypted, and it is recommended that we use strong wireless encryption algorithms like WPA on our mobile devices and on our access points and home networks. It can be easily, you can easily download and Google the details and the procedures on how to configure your devices securely. So this is one of the best recommendations on using wireless devices. Also, wireless devices, they come with default username and password, and especially an admin username and password. So we should also change the default username and password to something that is very complex. Wireless devices and wireless routers and access points, they have the ability to filter certain domains. For example, if the parent doesn't want their children to, let's say, browse YouTube or browse certain malicious websites, they can configure the wireless device to block those websites and those applications from being downloaded, and this will reduce the risk on the child device, and it will help to protect the machine. Also, it is better that we configure the wireless device to connect only to trusted devices, and this can be easily Googled as well, and can be configured at the wireless access point at home. So for example, if I have 5 children, and I can get the details of those 5 smartphones, and I can configure them into the wireless access point, and I can only allow my access point to connect only to those 5 smartphones. So in this case, I will reduce the probability of somebody else from hacking into my wireless device. It is better also to hide the, we call it the SSID name, or the wireless network name. Okay? By hiding the wireless network name, we will be able to reduce the probability of hacking to our wireless network. Because if the wireless network gets hacked, then all the devices that are connected to the wireless network or the wireless access point will be hacked as well. Some companies nowadays allow employees to bring their own mobiles and smartphones to company network, to the company, and they allow them to connect those personal devices to company network. It is better that we restrict the bringing of the employees' devices also to reduce the risk on the company network. And we should also use the approved Wi-Fi devices and approved wireless devices to connect to our home network or company network. And following the organizational policies regarding personal wireless phones and devices must be enforced. Be mindful of using the insecure wireless devices as well. Do some regular physical check to our network, because some foreign devices may be connected to the company network, and they may steal our information and personal data. So physical check is also important. Installing the wireless access point in the middle of the building rather than installing the device next to the window or near to the window will make life harder on attackers as well, because the signal in this case will not be propagated to a longer distance. Because if a hacker wants to hack your network, wireless network in particular, he or she will be able to hack it. Okay, it's a matter of time. Why? Because the signal is easily propagated to a longer distance. So by having an antenna that collects and intercepts your communication, this can be done easily, and using some publicly available tools on the internet and Google, this will happen easily. And the number, unfortunately, the number of hacking tools on the internet are huge. So there are more than 150,000 hacking tools on the internet. So the risk is always there, and it is very difficult to guard against those kinds of risks, except training and awareness. So like this session, this is considered as an introductory session to CyberSAFE. So this will help parents later on to protect their personal devices and reduce this level of the cybersecurity risk. Browsing the internet is also very important. As we know, internet and the web browsers, they are the main door to the internet, which contain billions of websites, and those websites, they may be trusted and they may be untrusted, and this is the biggest issue. So browsing an untrusted website will cause an additional risk. Also, using the email securely, using our social networking securely, especially the Facebook, the Twitter, the other social networking applications. Now, posting your personal data is very dangerous as well. Your profile picture, your profile data, your hobbies, your date of birth, your gender, those information must be private, and they should not be disclosed to over the internet, because hackers, they collect this information and they do impersonation. Okay, and impersonation is one of the highly common attacks nowadays. And you should create also an account that doesn't link to your identity. For example, X123, because hackers right now, they create fake accounts on the internet and the social media, and they try to convince victims of doing, malicious actions or some activities that they shouldn't do, and this will increase the risk. So it is better that we become very cautious about communicating with foreigners and with strangers, and communicating with the untrusted users. Cloud services are also becoming very common right now, like Dropbox and Google Drive or OneDrive. So those devices are, using data centers all over the world, and we have no physical access and guarantee to our data. So our data will be stored somewhere in the world, and we have no full control over the data. So if we upload our personal data to the cloud, then the data will be 100% unsecure, unless, of course, we use the commercial cloud service providers and we sign agreements with them, but the free ones are not guaranteed. So it is better that we encrypt our data before uploading the data to the cloud and to the cloud storage providers. Browsing the internet depends on something called HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, now HTTP is a protocol that is used to transfer data over the internet in clear text, and HTTP is a vulnerable protocol. It does not encrypt data. However, on the other hand, HTTPS is a secure version of HTTP. So especially when we are doing some online banking, and especially when we are connecting to our personal emails, it is better that we ensure that the connection is over HTTPS rather than HTTP, because HTTPS is encrypting our data over the internet and over the untrusted internet. Those browsers which carry our credentials must be also updated. So updating and patching is very important. So we should make sure that the operating system that we are using is up to date, and the applications and the browsers are also up to date, because once we patch or update the browser or our operating system, it means the security flaws and the vulnerabilities are fixed now. Okay, so it will be difficult for hackers to break into our devices. Avoiding installing the unneeded add-ons or the plugins or the toolbars to the browsers as well, because those will carry, they may carry malware, and if we don't need them, and if we are not fully aware of the importance of those add-ons and plugins, don't install them. Use only secure websites to browse, especially the online banking, and verify the links. So when we receive an email, or when we receive a message with an email or with a link, okay, we should verify that this link is actually related to a genuine source and not a fake one or a hacked one. We should know our senders as well regarding email. So if we receive an email, first of all, we should check the sender, we should check the subject also, and we should check the content of the email. If it is coming from a stranger, from an unknown source, we should delete the email right away. Don't even open it, because sometimes even if you open the email, your machine gets infected. And it is a common practice to check the spelling and the grammatical errors in the email. And if the subject is not expected, then this may be a hacked, or this may be a spam or a phishing email. Senders also, they use a generic signature, and the hackers, they use generic signature. So if you receive an email with generic signature, don't reply back, delete the email right away. And attachments in emails are very dangerous. So if we receive an email with an attachment, first of all, we should do a scan, a virus scan to the attachment before opening the attachment and downloading the attachment. If we are going to share and upload and attach some files that are sensitive using emails, it is better that we encrypt those attachments with a password. Using simply Microsoft Word will do this. Attachments are vulnerable also, and regardless of the file extension. Now there are some common files that are highly vulnerable, like .exe file is a common extension that is considered a malicious one. For example, even the batch file, the .com extensions, and the .sys can be also vulnerable. So it is better that we check the extensions of the files before we download and before we use those attachments. Be confident of the source of the email attachments is also important. So who is sending this email and who is sending this attachment? Verify the source, and then scan, and then open that attachments afterwards. But don't open and don't download suspicious attachments. Now, most organizations right now are engaging in social networking, and this is becoming a marketing tool for everybody, on the personal level and on the company level. So social networking are also highly vulnerable, and social networks are also hacked, and hackers, they search into the social networking, the social networks, they look for the information, they do information gathering, and hackers, they spend most of their time, almost 95% of their time, doing information gathering and Googling and searching for personal information. So it is better that we restrict this information and as much as we can. So don't publish our information and don't post it on social media. Just make sure that the needed information are recorded into those social media and social networking. So it is better that we manage our social networking privacy appropriately, and be mindful of what you share on social media and social networking. So not everything has to be shared. So be careful. Be mindful of sharing personal information, as we mentioned earlier. Some information should not be shared over the internet, like date of birth, for example, or credit card information, or passwords, and so on. Thank you.